Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to another Hero House Top 10. Today we're looking at the top 10 Zords slash Megazords from the Power Rangers series. Now, the Zords and Megazords sort of define Power Rangers. I mean, if they didn't have them, it wouldn't be the franchise as we know and love it today. They're such a huge component of every series and every team, and if a team has a lackluster set of Zords, it kind of diminishes the series as a whole. So I think, the best series tend to have the best Zords because they are such an essential part of what makes that series great. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Coming in at number 10, we have the Astro Megazord from Power Rangers in Space. Now, this thing is just kind of badass in the sense like it's got a sword and a shield and puts out sort of a gladiator vibe. Plus it has one of the coolest sort of intros of any Megazord in the series. I mean, it's literally in space, as the name of the show implies, and the scenes where it's sort of coming into Earth from orbit and it's got the flames going around it, that's incredible. It's got such a good morphing sequence, the head, coming from the ship itself. Really, really dynamic appearance. And just the story of, they go through the series, they get all these other more powerful Zords that amplify it, but then when shit hits the fan, basically, that Zord is all that they're left with. And the series ends with it making a final stand. And that's kind of dynamic and impressive and what you want, really. The original Megazord from their series is their last Megazord at the end and survives everything, whereas the upgrades perish. So yeah, definitely a worthy number 10, just not quite as memorable or gimmicky or cool as those higher up in the list. Alright, at number 9, we have the Megazord from Power Rangers S.P.D, which is basically just a giant robotic cop, which is so cool in and of itself. Like, there are scenes where they're obviously practicing implementing CGI into the movement of the Zords. Now, CGI Zords are basically, or I think the Zords start becoming a bit shit when they were done almost entirely by CGI. I think that took a lot of charm away from the franchise. But in this, it just adds to it because you have a cop that does, the classic cliche diving sideways while firing its gun. That's really cool and a good way to sort of combine CGI with the practical effects to make something that's dynamic. So, yeah, I think the S.P.D Megazord is one of the last really cool ones. And I think that's why it's so up on my list. And yeah, just the fact that I like sort of, cop procedural shows or cop shows. I think SPD being about cops was one of the coolest parts of it. And I like that that carried over to the Megazord. So that's why it's number 9. All right, let's roll to number 8. Number 8 is the Megazord from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Now, this thing is composed of rescue vehicles because obviously Lightspeed Rescue had them doing that sort of thing. Especially Carter, he had a career as a fireman before he became the Red Ranger, so it was nice he basically had a fire truck thing as his vehicle because it kind of suited him. And then they had extendable ladder hands, extendable ladder arms that it incorporated into combat so well, which sounds dumb, but then when it gets put into practice in such an effective and devastating manner, it just becomes cool. And that was part of the whole charm of Zords in Lightspeed Rescue, is a lot of their Zords were kind of ridiculous, but they just executed it so well that you had to enjoy them, and it just heightened them so much. So yeah, definitely a solid number 8 from Lightspeed Rescue, and you'll see another Zord from that series cropping up higher up the list. Now, number 7 is the Megazord from Power Rangers Timeforce, which again, like SPD, was when they were sort of trying to implement CGI along with the practical effects. So this sword, it could change from sort of sword mode to gun mode. The way it was summoned was awesome. I mean, a giant Zord in the future basically sledgehammers back the smaller Zords through time and space to get to them, and does it on like a daily/weekly basis. So that's kind of amazing. And then the actual like Megazord, or not Megazord, but the Ultra Sword or Power Sword slash that it does, where it then ticks down to how much time the enemy has left and wipes them out. It's so badass. Like, I really, really enjoyed that particular component because they incorporated the sword into the whole time dynamic. Very clever, very cool Zord. Solid number 7. Number 6 is the Supertrain Megazord from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Now, this is definitely cooler than, their main Megazord because it's just composed of flying trains. And again, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, but it's one of the biggest Megazords. Like, it is fucking huge compared to all of the others. It's got some amazing firepower, and it's just got a sick design considering it's composed of trains. Like, they incorporate the trains into the design very well, but it looks so intimidating, and when you see it coming for you, well, if you saw it coming for you, obviously you don't in everyday life encounter the Supertrain Megazord coming at you. That would be ridiculous and very destructive. But yeah, you know that that thing is going to mess you up. And it means when Diabolico took it down, you knew that guy meant business. It was a really tough Megazord, a really unique Megazord. And that's why it is our number 6. So then, let's swing into number 5. Number 5 is, unbelievably, the Dragonzord from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Yes, Tommy made a top 10 list in a fashion. He himself is not the Dragonzord, and I'll concede that the Dragonzord was an absolutely incredible, Zord. Its entrance, the way it was summoned, the flute, everything about it was badass and cool. It's basically Metallic Godzilla, and it's got the drill tail, it fires missiles, it responds to the flute. Really clever design, and when it joined the team, that added so much to the Zord team. It's what led the gateway to the Ultra Zord, and then, it itself could combine with the other Zords to make the Dragonzord fighting mode. So really cool, introduced a lot of important elements to the series, and that's why it is our number 5. Alright, let's roll to number 4. Number 4 is another Mighty Morphin Zord, and this is the Tyrannosaurus. Now obviously Jason Zord was always going to score high with me, and this has the added benefit of being the first Zord that could take down a monster all on its lonesome. I mean, in the second episode of the series as a whole, it goes one-on-one with the giant and just absolutely wrecks it. It, tears open the ground with its horn attack. It goes one-on-one with a Dragonzord at a point in time, I think, and beats it, if memory serves, or at least fights it to a stalemate. Which, considering Tommy always seemed to get, extra powers on top of the other Rangers, just sort of adds to the dynamic nature of the Tyrannosaurus. It's like a basic Zord that goes up against this extra hench Zord and still manages to hold its own. So, yeah, definitely a top number 4 Zord for me. Probably one of my personal favorites in terms of just nostalgia, but I can recognize these other Zords beat it out. But then again, all these other Zords will also have nostalgia attached. Warning. Alright, let's head to number 3. That's right, number 3 is just the next step up in the scale of Jason Zords. Now we have the Red Dragonzord. So this is Jason Zord from Season 2 of Mighty Morphin. This is when they had the Thunder Zords. And this is, I think, the best individual Zord we ever got. I mean, it's got the battle mode that can stand toe-to-toe with most monsters, and it's just so cool. Clearly inspired by Sun Wukong from Chinese mythology. He's got the staff, he's got the spinning, and then, the dragon form is so cool. It's such an awesome Chinese dragon. It's exactly what you want. It breathes fire, and its intro is so, so cool. In fact, I think it's one of the most iconic parts of the series. For the life of me, I cannot think of another individual Zord that even comes close to being as cool as the Red Dragonzord. Alright, let's roll on to number 2. That's right, number 2 is the OG itself, the Dino Megazord from Mighty Morphin. A lot of them are from Mighty Morphin, but then Mighty Morphin, those 3 seasons just had wicked Zords themselves. I think, they just haven't been topped. And the OG was so cool. I mean, Megazord sequence has been initiated is an iconic phrase in the series. You knew shit was going to go down, plus they had that banging theme music that came on whenever they're going to do it. The way it summoned its power sword, it would, hurtle down from the heavens and it would pull it from the stone like King Arthur drawing the sword from the stone. Absolutely sick combination, and just made it such an incredible delight to watch. Whenever that Zord rocked up, you were going to get excited. But there was another Zord, or Megazord, who had a sequence that was even better. And it obviously was our number 1, the Thunder Megazord. Now, how does the Thunder Zord beat the Dino? Well, I'll just show you the clip of it being summoned, because, it is still one of the coolest things to come out of the entire decade of the 90s, is, the Rangers summoning the Thunder Zords. Let's just have a watch.
Mastodon Lion Thunderzord power! Pterodactyl Firebird Thunderzord power! Triceratops Unicorn Thunderzord power! Saber-Tooth Griffin Thunderzord power! Tyrannosaurus Red Dragon Thunderzord power!
They've got a power and force that you've never seen before. They've got
honestly, how metal was that? And how cool are all the designs? I mean, they're all mythological creatures combining together. And, like, you incorporate the old elements of the former Zords as well. They haven't been completely cast aside. They have just been upgraded. Now, unfortunately, the Thunder Megazord suffered from the fact that they were having to adapt footage that, they weren't really equipped to deal with. I mean, they didn't look the same in the cockpit, and they weren't fighting the same monsters. So they had to use a lot of cuts, which made the fights awkward and not as compelling as the Dino Megazords. But in terms of concept and design, the Thunder Megazord was superior. And since it was the transitional period where they could have lost a lot of people or, completely botched it, I think they did a good job of giving us a Megazord that was an improvement over the original. So yeah, there you have it. Those are my top 10 Megazords/Zords of all time. What are your top 10, guys? Let me know. Thank you for watching. As always, if you want to see more, we have plenty of content. We've got Hero House, we've got the Wreckers, we've got figure fights, we've got top 10s, we've got ranking lists. So yeah, lots to enjoy. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again. All the best. Bye.